Ladies and gentlemen, from the depths of the Salus Populi state, the Kansas City that has a team everyone loves to hate, welcome to another episode of Hitting the Bricks with Kathleen, the do-it-yourself genealogy podcast that features your questions and her answers. I am John, your humble hubby host, and today we'll be talking to members of the Salus Populi project, Michelle Cook and Riley Sutherland. So let's start hitting the bricks. Kathleen, today we have two members of the Salus Populi project, Michelle Cook and Riley Sutherland.
And John, I will...
Go ahead.
And John, I will put their information in the show notes.
Or in the A3 Genealogy blog at A3 Genealogy.
Are you done?
No, I think
this is him teasing me because I always plug my blog.
Yeah, really. Okay, yeah, that's... Okay, this is the problem with doing these on Friday.
Or Monday or Tuesday.
Or Monday or Tuesday.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay,
yeah.
So Kathleen, do us a favor real quick and tell me how you heard of Michelle and Riley's work, okay?
Okay, John, from the top, you got it? What have we done?
Done 3 times. We know who they are. Everybody's met multiple times. I feel like we should all just be going out for lunch at this point because I want to know how you found out about the project and how you met up with Michelle and Riley. I
have been seeing it on social media. I did not know what the project actually entailed, but it had something to do with USCT and something in Missouri.
And the USCT
that's all I really
is
knew. The United States Colored Troops.
Okay.
So that's why I went to the presentation. I was like, what are they actually doing? And I was pleasantly surprised by both the diversity of the audience and their presentation was excellent.
Well, okay. So Riley and Michelle?
Michelle, you really got engaged first, so I'll let you go ahead and start.
That sounds great. Thanks, Riley. So I have been for about the last 10 years deep in African-American records here in Clay County. Riley, of course, is at Harvard getting her PhD right now, and I am still here in Liberty, and we met many years ago, but prior to our meeting, I was researching projects, specifically African-American projects here in Liberty, which is in Clay County, Missouri. And I had a lot of questions, and no one could answer those questions. And so, like any good historian, I just kept digging deeper and deeper and deeper, trying to get into that. And so when Riley and I met through a project, we were cleaning headstones in the cemetery, in the local cemetery. And we started talking, and I started chatting with her about what was going on. And she had actually heard me, I think, correct me if I am wrong, Riley, but I think I had done a presentation for the Clay County Museum, and Riley was heavily involved with the museum at that time. And that was kind of the beginning of all of this goodness. And she began to talk with me about pension records because she was interested in pension records. And that was kind of the start of it.
How did you get involved with this?
Well, hang on. I was going to actually ask a different question because did you both go to the cemetery together to clean headstones, or did you just bump into each other at the cemetery?
When the City of Liberty had a cemetery committee, they have since disbanded that cemetery committee, but I was the volunteer coordinator, and I was trying to move the city towards preservation because the cemetery here was an historic cemetery. And so we were trying to do all of the good things that preservationists do, all of the recording and the cleaning and all of those good things. And so Riley came as a volunteer to clean headstones.
Got it.
So that's that piece. So your question, Kathleen, is what do I do for a living? Well, I kind of do this for a living now. But, as most of us do, I think we wear lots of hats. And my pay gig is I'm a professional musician and educator. And so I did not realize or understand the level of my love for history until I began doing African American history. I did not understand how much I loved it, and it has definitely become a passion of mine, and I don't think it's one I will likely give up even after we complete this project. I am in, as they say, to my neck. And I think there is too much work to do, and I want to be about the work.
So, Michelle, when the connection, the reason you got involved in African American history was because of the cemetery project. Is that correct?
That
when
is
you were
correct.
actually involved there?
I had been researching our local cemeteries to discover the unmarked and unknown African American burials in our city cemeteries. And when I began that work, the city had only 233 known burials, not many marked, but known. And I am still working on that project. I am up to almost 1,000 at this point. In the process of doing that, I discovered the first USCT soldier and went, what is this? There's a bigger story here. And that, of course, led to the Salus project. And once I understood the magnificence of what the records held, and I understood the void between what we did not know, nor could we find. That void was expansive. And I knew that doing this work could fill that gap for a great many people, regardless of what angle they were coming at. I always say this, and Riley's heard me say this a million times. There's an entry point to this project, whether you're a descendant, a community historian, an educator, a serious historian who makes your living, writing books. There's an entry point for everyone.
And what about you, Riley? How did you come along and get involved? What drew you to this project? Pick it up from there.
Yes, I, prior to being in that cemetery, had started my undergraduate work as a history student at the University of South Carolina. And I was studying Revolutionary War pensions. I had a high school teacher, Kelly Locke McMillan, who encouraged me to look at these Revolutionary War pension records because the way they can help us see how people tell their stories. So in pension records, we'll have folks who couldn't read, they couldn't write, but they would appear before a judge and share their stories. And so I was so drawn to these stories and wanted to figure out how to learn more about history through them. And this was on my mind when I was visiting my family over spring break. They lived in Liberty. I grew up in Liberty when the COVID lockdown happened and I couldn't return to school. So I found myself taking classes in Liberty from my parents' guest bedroom. And that's when my mom signed us up to go to a cemetery cleaning to get out of the house during lockdown. Is where I bumped into Michelle, and Michelle mentioned pension records when explaining to me who people in the cemetery were. And I was so excited because I'd never met another woman who wanted to read pension records, with the exception of a high school teacher. So this was very inspiring to me, as well as the way Michelle tells history. So she took me into the cemetery to learn how to clean headstones, but she just started pointing to pieces of ground that weren't marked. And she'd say, do you see that ground right there? That's where this man is buried, his daughter is over there, and it relates to this family. And all of a sudden, I saw Michelle, through hand gestures and stories, reconstructing an entire town and families and people who were legally opposed to each other, rivalries, business partners, comrades, all in this cemetery. And it was a way of telling stories I found sorely missing from my college classes and something I wanted to learn more from and explore more. So I asked Michelle, can I join you to share these pension records with people? And we got to work together.
And I rejoiced greatly.
Well, it sounds like a lot of kindred spirits.
Very much so.
And because pension records, my reading tends to go in a different direction. But of course, I've heard Kathleen talk about them and how important they are, and she absolutely flogs that in her presentations, and just how full of information they are.
When you go in to research somebody and you can find no information, when you and you go into the research and you find the record and you find the pension and you start reading the pension, and it is just like all of these layers unfold and are unpeeled, and you find things that you never would have found. Entire communities are reconstructed. Entire families are reconstructed. Stories, pre-war stories. Battlefields account. The latest headstone that we had installed, this gentleman, his name is Woodford Pickett, And Woodford Pickett was in the battle, the siege of Fort Blakely, Alabama. Fort Blakely, Alabama, which is a significant piece of history. And yet he came back. He was from Liberty, went away, came back. We can follow his entire trajectory up until the time he died and was here. And I could find no information about him other than census information until I got this pension.
Wow.
So that's pretty significant stuff. And I get excited about it. I'm probably one of 15 people in the whole universe that gets this excited about it, but I get excited.
Well, count me in.
Well, we have at least 3 of the other 12 are lonely right now because the 3 of them are here at least. I'm not including myself in that, but I do appreciate how much those records and adding to the database of knowledge is so important, really. That is really what history is about, is understanding the individual contributions beyond the wider movements of politics and geography and all of that.
I think so frequently about how, one of our main thrusts with this project, and I know Riley can tell you much about this as well, is we want them to be accessible, and we want people to understand what they're looking at, why they're looking at it, how they were constructed, because they just have remained so hidden, and so many people don't even know how to find them. And so we're really determined to help people have an understanding of that so that they can, and I know you all believe in this, then they can do the work. We can do a lot of the work. We can bring people to the work. Kathleen, you're a teacher. You understand this. This is how you educate people, and you bring them, and then they figure out how to do it. When you're out there swimming by yourself, and I think we've all done that, we're trying to figure things out, and there's no one to help us figure those. We feel like there's nobody to help us figure those things out.
Which brings me to 2 different points, John. One, I want to talk about the project, but I also want to talk about what Tracing Ancestors is doing, and we are organizing our first event now just to bring people in and helping them with those resources. But I'm going to get back to that in a minute. First of all, on Michelle and Riley's website, on the project website, the project that Michelle has referred to hasn't been explained yet.
Do you want to take a whack at that?
I can go ahead and get it started and then jump in and add anything. So the goal of the project is to, first of all, digitize as many of these pension records as we can. I don't know that either of us have actually explained what a pension record is yet, so we can do that a little bit more. These pension files are in the National Archives, most of them in Washington, D.C., some of them in St. Louis, and are notes from when these USCT veterans applied for pensions, or if they're widows, their children, or sometimes even their parents applied for pensions in exchange for their service after the Civil War. And they'd appear before courts, and clerks would write down, what they were saying to prove that they'd really served, what their experiences were like in the war. And in order to prove they really served and deserved pensions, they brought alongside them family members, comrades. Michelle has even found documents in which the people who formerly enslaved these men would write in, yes, I really enslaved this person, all to substantiate these men's stories. They would also submit additional documents they have. So sometimes widows would submit photographs of their husbands who served in the war. And all of these are now in files in the National Archives. So these are very rich sources, especially for descendant researchers who can reconstruct family trees and friend networks and all of these things from these files, but none of them are digitized. And so Michelle and I wanted to find out how to help folks access these documents without paying upwards of $200 fees to get them scanned, which is what it costs to scan just a single pension file.
Wow.
So we are currently in the process of digitizing these records. I think we've finished scanning about 15% of them. So we're making progress. And our goal is to then make a digital archive so folks can access both images of the documents, but also transcriptions. So that way they can keyword search for terms that might be relevant to them. So folks are able to see what the places and people and events these men are talking about were. And from there, Michelle, you can talk a little bit more about this too. We're hoping to use this project as a springboard for additional remembrance projects in the community. Michelle mentioned headstones. So we're going to work on continuing to tell these men's story through headstones. We have been planning some preliminary arts projects. Michelle's a music teacher. I actually heard of her in the community before meeting her in the cemetery because I played the violin and was in orchestras with her students. So Michelle ended up finding a USCT songbook of music the fifers and drummers would have played in camp, and we've been working with local music groups to record those songs and think about what these mean to men. So we're hoping the project will help individuals connect with the history of their ancestors, but also with these mutual aid networks that the men constructed, the communities they constructed. And we're considering how studying that past can help us construct those communities in liberty today. Michelle, I'm going to hand it off to you to add whatever you like to that.
Well, no, you did a fantastic job. In a nutshell, brevity is not my strength. Riley is far, far better at that. I'm the story girl. I synthesize the information because I feel so strongly that people need to hear and understand the stories. This project does not encompass all of Missouri. That would be incredibly voluminous, and we are small, and it's costly. And so we chose for our data set the 7 counties in Missouri that were the heaviest enslaving counties. And when I say that, I mean these 7 of Missouri's 114 counties held a third of Missouri's enslaved. 7, I'll say that again because it's so important for people to understand. 7 counties held a third of all of Missouri's enslaved. And so we chose to focus on those particular counties. We are in the second phase of our project. The first phase took about a year and a half, just slightly over that. We went through 5,000 records and whittled that down to 2,500, and we've created a pretty robust database with a lot of information, the military information that allows us to find the pensions, because matching the pensions and the people is a little challenging with African American research, specifically because of the names. And so I feel fortunate to have had, we had a small team, a team of 15 people, but we got it done. We went through that many records in a year and a half. And we've been concurrently getting the pensions, and we are starting the work of transcription at this point. So we're going to need a lot more help. I feel excited and hopeful about what I think this is going to bring to the communities who, frankly, are a lot of them still in the dark about this history. So
she did mention the 7 counties that they chose, which was Boone, Callaway County, Sheridan, Clay, Lafayette, Howard, and Saline County. Those are 7 of the 17 parts of Little Dixie, or what we call the Black Belt. Missouri is noted for having the most African Americans enslaved or enslaved persons outside of the South. And so because of that, this history is extremely rich. When she was talking about Liberty, Missouri, where she was cleaning the graves, that was just one of counties, which is Clay County, right? So that's just one of those 7 counties where it's Liberty. And of course, my family was there too, and was a Buffalo Soldier from there.
Something we are also tracking with this project, by the way.
Wonderful. And Saline County, of course, covers my entire maternal side of enslaved people. So I was very excited about that. Yeah.
And I noticed on the map on the website, though, that there are counties that run all the way down through the Cape Girardeau area.
Yeah. There were 54 enlistment stations throughout the state. It is surprising. I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago in Weston and had specifically talked about those enslaved. Weston's USCT at their recruitment had only 2 men listed from that particular station, and every other man from Platte County went somewhere else to enlist, which of course is true for so many individuals, but definitely for Platte County too. So all across the state, for sure.
And they were able to get to where they needed to go because we did not have an organized Confederacy here in Missouri. We had the looting and the crazies running around, but we didn't have the organized. All they needed to do is get somewhere.
And these are enlistments in the Union Army, the GAR.
Correct.
Absolutely.
The Union Army. And they were considered volunteers. They were considered their own. And the recruitment here, it's very interesting because we have some those USCT soldiers who actually started before, I think the earliest in Missouri's technically is 63, but we actually have some from these counties who enlisted before that. They went to other places and enlisted before that, in 1st Kansas.
Sure. Yes. So that was one of my questions is the actual project. It's a digitizing project. It is one more way that we can honor these people who served our country. They didn't serve them as traitors. They served them as, I believe in this Constitution, we are fighting for our rights. We're fighting for our freedom. And I don't know if you're going to have to cut and paste this part, but
that's never
I wanted to
morning.
ask, I'm sorry.
That's never
I
a good
wanted
sign.
to ask them why the title.
Michelle and I thought for a long time about what to title the project. We wanted to make sure it's something that would really, we hope, resonate with the men who were studying. We chose, after Michelle looked at USCT training books for so long, to name the project Salus Populi, because Salus Populi ex let suprema. I do not know Latin. That might have been horrific, so apologies to listeners who know how to pronounce that. Is Missouri's state motto. It means the will of the people is supreme law. And this is something that Michelle discovered some USCT soldiers actually had written on their flags that they carried into battle. And we were thinking about just the nuance and intricacy of what that means, the will of the people is supreme law, especially in a state like Missouri during the Civil War. So we found it just tremendously impactful that these men were fighting to be included in the people whose will was supreme law, and wanted to name our project after that to honor the fact that these men transformed what the Missouri state motto means, as well as to honor the fact that we want those voices to be included in the narrative of how this became the Missouri state motto and its significance.
I really was touched by this on your website. You have these 3 reasons why it was named that, what it meant. You put up the motto, the regimental flag, and then at the very end, you said this project, through its process to interrogate the changing historical meaning of the people. And when I saw that, I thought, that is fabulous. Wouldn't we like to have a more inclusive in the people? And John, do you remember me talking about this earlier today?
Yeah, well, in other words.
In other words. I kept telling him, start with in other words, in other words. And he goes, well, what about the rest of it? Do you like that too? So John, will you read that just because it's so beautiful?
In other words, we believe the archive is not a place or a collection, but a cacophony of voices which have been buried by prejudice and underdeveloped archival infrastructure. It's time to listen. And I think that active approach to experiencing history is often lacking. I don't find it lacking with genealogists and with the people I've met through Kathleen and through really the podcast. It's not lacking. History's a living thing for especially the researchers. It's a living thing. It's often presented as very dry and very boring subject. It's talking about the past with no context. And I think with the genealogy and the research that's being done and the work being done with groups like Salus Populi, it becomes a living thing, which is wonderful and a great way to experience our past and our history.
We deeply appreciate you saying that and hearing that very clearly. That means we're doing our job right. And I don't think anybody who spends any time in the archival record knows that the work is going to be never ending, to tell stories, to help people understand, to educate people the disparity in what has not occurred and what has been covered up and is now, as you say, living. The archives do speak to you, and I know that sounds very woo-woo to some people, but I do believe that when you begin to do this work, you understand, and we want to engage people at a level beyond just sheer military history, just sheer Black history. You know, when I read the stories of these individuals and their wives, I am floored daily by the things that I read. And I think often about how this is just so completely inaccessible and buried. And I think it drives us to the work. And even though it is big work, someone said to me, well, why aren't you doing all of Missouri?
One day.
And I said, that's the goal. The ultimate goal is to do this project, do it well, help people understand what it can be, and then teach other people how to do it. I mean, I'm an educator. Riley's an educator. Kathleen, you're an educator. It's work.
Fergus.
Right?
I'm sorry. Can we sit back on that name for a second?
Fergus. He's a West Highland Terrier, so he had to have
Of course he is.
He had to have his name.
While Michelle's getting up, I'll just note that something she frequently says to me, building on what she was just saying about connecting with educators, is she says, Riley, if we're doing this project correctly, this will inspire people across the United States to undertake similar projects, and we want to connect with them and help make a model in which we're not just necessarily putting documents out there without any interpretation or without any work building community to listen to what the documents are saying, but instead figuring out how to work alongside each other to forge community through the documents. And I think about that frequently when working on this with Michelle. So part of education is helping people figure out the potential of these documents. And look at that.
Yeah, beautifully put. Again, an excellent idea going into the concept of this is community.
I love that you said that because, that's one of the things that I always think about. I was like, I grew up here. Riley grew up here. We grew up in a town called Liberty, for heaven's sake. and I knew nothing of any of this history. It was not taught. It was not accessible to me. And now I know, and I think I am very determined to help people. I know my students ask me about it all the time. They ask me about the project all the time. And we are even we're working with students. We're setting out those, putting out those feelers and drawing people in to help with transcription work. And they're very interested. They want to know. They want people to talk to them about it.
Teachers as well. I'm lucky that I had some of the most encouraging, thoughtful history teachers. That's why I'm a history student now. And some of my former high school teachers, middle school teachers have reached out to Michelle and I and said, we want to hear more about this work. How can we share it with our students? How can we get our students involved? So Michelle and I have talked a lot and written some guides to help students get involved in the transcription process so they can see not only these men's stories, but also what the process of doing this work looks like. What does it look like to try to sit down and read cursive handwriting? What does it mean to sit down and really get into the work? Like Michelle and I, we sometimes just call each other and cry, sobbing, reading these pension records, because you can relate sometimes so deeply to the emotions in this document. Michelle found some of the most beautiful letters a soldier wrote home to his wife, asking about folks who were enslaved alongside him and asking to be sent a hymn book because he wanted to have that with him in camp. And reading these sometimes is just so overwhelmingly meaningful, and we're really eager to engage students in that. The descendants that we've had the privilege of talking with understand this so deeply, and we want to share that feeling with students so they can understand the importance of this work as well.
Going back to what they're both talking about, and that's that community involvement, community engagement, and education. That is why our Tracing Ancestors has a new project called the Eternal Valor Network, the EVN. And that network is to pull organizations like yours who are out to honor veterans, whether they're Black or white, but union, because we have in our community several organizations. I've identified, I think, 7 so far that honor our military and our veterans. So the Eternal Valor Network will be a consortium where organizations like yours will be a part of, and we're hoping to have our first event this spring. Michelle has been already asked to be a speaker.
Yes, and I'm excited. I'm very excited about being a part of this. We knew immediately when we started this project that having a space on the permanent website for these gentlemen to be honored and for people to read about their stories. And in fact, we are going to have like an in memoriam kind of a page, but we are going to put
QR codes.
This is the tired lady speak. Thank you, Riley. I cannot tell you how many times Riley has saved my keister on many.
Oh, save in the reverse.
On the actual, so if you're going through, right, you're walking through a cemetery. I know that sounds weird, but people do it all the time. There are public parks here. People walk through the cemeteries. And if there's a QR code and you can go on it and it directs them to the whole, you can read this whole person's life story.
Right.
It's a powerful piece.
So now, John, what is your role in all of this?
I'm here for the pithy statement. History is about all of us. And
as a listener, I have to say, I appreciate the pithy statements.
There you go.
Do you have other things you want to add about your project? Except I do have one question, and John, I'm not sure if this is included or not.
I don't know that
but
you're
I do
allowed
have
to ask
one
any more
question,
questions.
Michelle. What is the Slavery Memory and Justice Project?
I'm a William Jewell College graduate, and the Slavery Memory and Justice Project was something I had a great opportunity to be a part of. One of our board members, Dr. Chris Wilkins, was formerly at William Jewell, and Chris is a brilliant scholar and a brilliant educator, and he and his students began doing research many years ago on people enslaved by the founders of William Jewell, and I got involved with that project pretty early on as a research director and had a great time helping the students do a great many things in, talking about archival research and how you do archival research and deciphering handwriting and all of those good skills that we have to have. In the process of that, of course, being a graduate of the college and having such a strong conviction myself about understanding the contributions of enslaved to the college where I went to school was pretty important for me. And so we made a couple of documentaries about that. Those are on YouTube. And it was a real pleasure to work with those students and be able to listen to them, ask questions, and be able to say either, I don't know, we'll go figure it out, or this is where we might look for that. But Chris led them so brilliantly in discovering that, and there's a website for that as well. And like I said, the video's on YouTube. So that was another side project. When you begin to get into the history game, as you know, you get a lot of little side projects that become very important. And that was one of my side projects that became very important to me. So thank you for asking about that.
I would just add, for anybody listening, if you have questions, if you want to get involved, if you would like to tell us what you'd like to see on the digital archive, what would benefit you, please feel free to reach out. We'll give Kathleen our email address. It's also on our website, so all of you should be able to find it. And we are so eager to collaborate with folks, build community like we've talked about throughout the podcast. So please feel free to email anything, stories, questions, ideas.
Absolutely. And it's just a little piece of information that helps you understand the need for, obviously, small nonprofits need financial support. That is a given. But there are lots of ways that people can contribute. And one of the things that Riley was just talking about, we're going to need, I will give you a very concrete example. So we have all of the Clay County pensions. Those pensions are somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 pages.
Wow.
And the affiant statements, which I think are everything that's in there is important, but the affiant statements are very, very important because they give us so much really rich contextualization that we would not get anywhere else. Those have to be transcribed, most of them. There are a few from the 30s that are typewritten, which we get very excited when we see those. But, we need all kinds of help, and there will be offshoot projects like the music project, the transcription projects, the headstone projects. And we have, we're forming a descendants council. We believe that Black voices have to be a key piece of this project. The voices of descendants are critical as well.
So, John, I want to make sure that everyone does understand they do have a 501c3. We will have all of that information where people can donate financial or ink as well as financial to help. Riley and Michelle, I really want to thank you for joining us. I'm looking forward to working with you all in the future, especially in the spring. Riley, I mentioned that Michelle is a speaker, but I've also seen what you can do. Don't think you're out of it. I just haven't asked you yet.
Thank you. I look forward to attending in any capacity and really look forward to talking with you more.
I call Riley all the time. I say, thank goodness I met you. Thank goodness you're leading the way for somebody who's a couple decades older than you. I could not do this project without her.
Michelle's telling us how great you are, Riley, so I'm writing it already down what I need you to do. Go ahead.
She's brilliant. But Riley has put in the work and is an incredible scholar. This project would not be what it is or where it is without her and without the team of people that we have. So it's great to be supported, to have the support of people. So we're incredibly grateful that you asked us to come and talk. We could talk for hours about these guys. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to tell the stories of these men. We want to make it so that they can tell their own stories through these records online, and they tell their stories well.
Absolutely.
We're just being a conduit right now so that they can tell their stories.
Thanks, both of you, for joining us. John, did you have any closing words?
No, not at all. I absolutely love this. It was such a pleasure to meet both of you. And hopefully we will talk again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kathleen, we have a winner, do we not? For what month? Is this, are we in?
This was for October.
For the month of October, for the MyHeritage Complete Package, which is a $300 value. And thank you so much to MyHeritage. And who do we have as a winner this month?
This month, John, is Stacy.
Stacy Shemp.
Yes, so it's Stacy Shemp.
She subscribed to the Linktree.
That is correct. In order to get a chance to win, you have to be a subscriber of linktr.ee/hittingthebricks.
And you have the chance of winning the MyHeritage Complete Package.
In addition to that, this is holiday season, so we're going to be giving away quite a few Ancestry DNA kits, as well as MyHeritage packages. Mm-hmm. But I am going to make it, as the board has suggested, only for our subscribers. So if we are looking for people to subscribe, we have about 10 other packages extra between 10 next week.
Of the Ancestry DNA?
Ancestry DNA, yeah.
Oh, okay. So
we have Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage Complete Package, a legacy tree software also.
Now the MyHeritage Complete Package, those are monthly. So you're going to get picked monthly on that. Now the DNA, it sounds like you can be a little bit more liberal with those.
That is correct.
Because you're dumping those before the end of the year?
Before New Year's Day. December 31st is the last day for
December
those.
31st, we're clearing out the basement of all of our DNA kits. Is that what it is?
That is correct.
Well, congratulations. You've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for staying. Thanks to MyHeritage and Legacy Family Tree webinars. Thanks to Michelle and Riley for spending time with us. Thanks to Chewy Chewbacca Brandt, our part-time brainworm and full-time whale dismembering nutbag, for his unwavering lack of interest in anything we're doing. The theme song for Hitting the Bricks was written and performed by Tony Fistknuckle and the Swifties. Watch for the next appearance wherever your favorite vaccines are sold. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Do you have a genealogical question for Kathleen? Drop us a line at hittingthebricks@gmail.com and let us know.